The afternoon sun beat down on the cracked asphalt of Liberty Street, shimmering off the faded paint of old storefronts. For Jackson, Michael, and David, three teenage boys navigating the cusp of manhood, Liberty Street was both their playground and their prison. Jackson, at 16, was the unspoken leader, his lean frame belying a sharp mind and a protective instinct. Michael, a year younger, was the quiet observer, his eyes missing nothing, his hands surprisingly deft with anything mechanical. David, the youngest at 14, was the spirited one, a whirlwind of boundless energy and infectious optimism that often masked the quiet anxieties they all carried. They lived in a neighborhood that whispered of forgotten dreams and systemic neglect, a place where opportunity felt like a distant rumor. Yet within their small, fiercely loyal trio, a different narrative unfolded, one of resilience, shared laughter, and an unbreakable bond forged in the crucible of their daily lives. They spent their summers helping their elderly neighbors with yard work, running errands for Mrs. Gable at the corner store, and fixing anything that broke, earning a few honest dollars that always went towards their family's needs, or a shared meal from their favorite local burger joint, Big Mike's. Big. The summer was a kaleidoscope of small joys and ever-present worries. Their families, like many in the neighborhood, were stretched thin. Jackson's mother worked 2 jobs to keep their small apartment. Michael's father was out of work, and David's grandmother struggled with rising medical bills. Despite their own struggles, the boys possessed a remarkable capacity for empathy. One sweltering afternoon, as they walked home from helping Mr. Henderson paint his fence, they spotted Mrs. Rodriguez, a frail, elderly woman from down the street, struggling with her groceries. Her bag had torn, spilling oranges and milk cartons across the sidewalk. Without a word, the boys sprang into action. Jackson swiftly gathered the scattered groceries, Michael retrieved the runaway oranges, and David, ever the charmer, quickly fetched a new bag from Mrs. Gable's store. They then walked Mrs. Rodriguez all the way home, carrying her bags, refusing her offers of payment. This quiet, collective act of kindness, performed with genuine sincerity and without a second thought, was their save the cat moment. It wasn't about grand heroism. It was about the simple, powerful act of seeing someone in need and stepping up, a testament to the innate goodness that pulsed beneath their youthful exteriors. Beneath the surface of their bustling, hard-working lives, each boy harbored a quiet dream, a secret aspiration that felt both impossibly distant and fiercely guarded. Jackson, though outwardly stoic, filled notebooks with intricate drawings of futuristic cityscapes, his mind constantly sketching out designs for sustainable housing and vibrant community centers. He possessed an intuitive understanding of engineering and a passion for urban renewal, a talent hidden in plain sight. Michael, quiet and observant, devoured every book he could find on mechanics and robotics, his small room filled with disassembled radios and makeshift gadgets. He dreamed of building things, of understanding how complex systems worked, and possessed a preternatural ability to fix almost anything with a few simple tools. David, the most outwardly boisterous, often spent hours on an old donated computer, teaching himself to code, his bright eyes alight with the possibilities of digital creation. He dreamed of designing video games that told stories, of creating worlds where anyone could be a hero, his quick wit finding its outlet in lines of code. These individual passions, pursued in secret moments stolen from their busy days, were their seed of mystery, hinting at extraordinary talents and aspirations that far exceeded the narrow expectations of their struggling neighborhood, waiting for the right moment to bloom. The sweltering summer air, thick with the scent of exhaust fumes and distant barbecues, usually felt like freedom to the 3 boys. But lately, a different kind of heat simmered beneath the surface of their lives, the intensifying pressure of circumstances they couldn't control. The first tremor of trouble came subtly, then grew into a seismic shock. For months, Jackson's mother had been battling persistent migraines, debilitating headaches that stole her energy and her ability to work. Then Michael's father, who had recently found a temporary construction job, suffered a severe fall on a job site, leaving him with a broken leg and no immediate income. And David's grandmother, her gentle spirit increasingly overshadowed by her ailing health, received a devastating diagnosis: a rare, aggressive form of pneumonia that would require prolonged hospitalization and specialized, incredibly expensive treatment. Their already fragile family finances, meticulously managed penny by penny, were suddenly overwhelmed. The costs mounted with terrifying speed. Medical supplies, lost wages, and the chilling phrase out-of-pocket expenses, echoing from every phone call and hospital visit. The boys, who had always found a way to scrape by, now felt a crushing sense of powerlessness. Their small earnings from odd jobs barely covered their own bus fare, let alone the colossal sums needed to keep their families from drowning. Each boy carried a silent burden of guilt, a nagging whisper that they weren't doing enough, couldn't be enough, to save their loved ones from the encroaching darkness. The turning point arrived with the cold, hard finality of bureaucracy. Jackson's mother lost her second job because of her frequent absences, the family sinking deeper into the red. Michael's father's workers' compensation claim was denied, leaving them with mounting bills and no income. And for David's grandmother, the hospital delivered a devastating ultimatum. Due to the specialized nature of her care and the lack of comprehensive insurance coverage, a significant upfront payment is required within 3 months to continue treatment. Without it, we will have to explore alternative, palliative options. 3 months. The words were a death knell, a countdown to losing the woman who had filled David's life with warmth and stories. They had exhausted every traditional avenue, borrowing from strained relatives, seeking meager community aid, even trying to sell a few treasured but ultimately valueless family trinkets. Every path they took led to a dead end. This was their collective point of no return. The fear of watching their families crumble, of seeing their loved ones suffer, or even worse, disappear from their lives due to circumstances beyond their control, ignited a desperate resolve within them. They couldn't stand idly by. They wouldn't. They needed a miracle, a breakthrough that no odd job or small-time hustle could provide. They would push themselves beyond every limit, venture into the unknown, and embrace any opportunity, no matter how unlikely, to find the impossible sums needed to save their families. They were young, but their determination was absolute. They would not surrender. The oppressive summer heat of Liberty Street often magnified every sound, every fleeting shadow. For Jackson, Michael, and David, the oppressive quiet from their homes, now filled with unspoken anxieties, was far more deafening than any street noise. Their usual playful banter had muted, replaced by a shared tension as they navigated the daily reality of their family's struggles. The personification of the rigid, unforgiving system they were up against often materialized in the form of Officer Hayes. A white officer in his late 40s, Hayes had patrolled their neighborhood for years. He wasn't overtly malicious, but he carried a heavy weight of cynicism and a profound distrust of kids loitering. He was quick to judge, his interactions often laced with thinly veiled suspicion, seeing mischief where there was only boredom or desperate hope. Officer Hayes was a classic Type B antagonist, a product of a system that often viewed the disadvantaged with a jaundiced eye, making him a constant, low-level threat to the boys' already precarious existence. He made his presence felt, often cruising by in his patrol car, his eyes scanning their every move, a silent, implicit warning to stay out of trouble. Amidst the stifling tension, the boys found small pockets of solace and genuine connection. Mr. Jenkins, the elderly owner of Big Mike's burger joint, was one such beacon. He'd known the boys since they were little, often slipping them an extra order of fries or a free soda when they stopped by after their odd jobs. He was a man of few words, but his quiet nods of encouragement and his unwavering belief in their good hearts were a powerful, silent support. Mr. Jenkins was a true helper, a grounding presence who saw past their circumstances to the good within them. The afternoon, the sleek black SUV with tinted windows rolled silently down their street was unlike any other. It was an anomaly in their world of beat-up sedans and struggling buses. It pulled over near a notorious pothole, and the boys, sitting on the stoop of an abandoned building, watched with curiosity. A man, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, stepped out. He was tall, distinguished, with an air of immense wealth that radiated from him. This was Mr. Sterling, a renowned billionaire and real estate mogul, whose name often appeared in headlines about grand urban development projects in the city's affluent districts. As he spoke into his phone, seemingly oblivious to his surroundings, his frustration grew. The boys overheard snippets of his conversation. Flat tire, no spare, driver stuck on the other side of town, impossible to get a tow truck here quickly. He kicked the flat tire of his luxury SUV, a picture of impotent rage despite his immense power. Jackson, Michael, and David exchanged glances. They knew this street, its quirks, its shortcuts. Michael, with his innate mechanical sense, had already spotted the problem. "Looks like a simple puncture," he murmured. Jackson, always the leader, made a decision. They had nothing to lose, and perhaps a few dollars to gain. He approached Mr. Sterling cautiously. "Excuse me, sir," Jackson began, his voice surprisingly steady. "Looks like you've got a flat. My friend here, Michael, he's pretty good with cars. We could probably help you fix it if you like." Mr. Sterling looked at them, his gaze sweeping over their worn clothes, his expression a mixture of surprise and skepticism. He was clearly unaccustomed to such directness, especially from boys from this neighborhood. "You?" he scoffed, a hint of disdain in his voice. "You think you can fix this?" Just then, Officer Hayes's patrol car slowly cruised by, his eyes narrowing as he saw the well-dressed Mr. Sterling talking to the three boys. He slowed, an implicit warning in his posture, making it clear he was watching. The subtle tension in the air thickened. Jackson, unfazed by either Mr. Sterling's skepticism or Officer Hayes's silent scrutiny, simply nodded. "We can try, sir. We fixed a few tires around here. Got a basic kit back at Michael's place." He glanced at Michael, who had already retrieved a small worn toolbox from his backpack. Sensing Mr. Sterling's hesitation, David, with his boundless optimism, chimed in. "It'll be quicker than waiting for a tow truck, sir, and we're good at it." Mr. Sterling, clearly desperate and frustrated, sighed. He looked at the boys, then at his expensive, immobile vehicle, then gave a curt nod. "Fine. How much?" "Just whatever you think is fair, sir," Jackson replied, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. And so, with Officer Hayes's patrol car slowly circling the block, the three boys went to work. Michael, his usually quiet demeanor replaced by focused concentration, efficiently jacked up the SUV. Jackson, following Michael's quiet instructions, expertly located the puncture, and David, ever the quick thinker, used a clever trick with a small inflatable toy he always carried to help locate the leak quickly. Their movements were coordinated, efficient, a testament to years of quiet practice and teamwork, born from necessity. Within minutes, the tire was patched, inflated, and back on the ground, the entire process completed with a surprising level of professionalism. Mr. Sterling watched, utterly dumbfounded. He had expected fumbling, perhaps even an attempt to scam him. Instead, he witnessed genuine competence and an unexpected display of ingenuity. He looked from the perfectly inflated tire to the three boys who now stood before him, their faces streaked with grease but beaming with quiet pride. He pulled out his wallet, ready to give them a generous sum. But as he did, he paused. He hadn't just seen a tire fixed. He had seen raw, untapped potential, quick thinking, and a remarkable work ethic from three boys whom society might have dismissed. He had seen their genuine collaboration, their resourcefulness, and their quiet determination. This was the boys' unveiling, a powerful, unbidden demonstration of their collective talents, their street smarts, and their inherent goodness, talents that defied the narrow confines of their struggling neighborhood, and the prejudiced gaze of onlookers like Officer Hayes. Mr. Sterling, a man who built empires, instinctively recognized something valuable. The air on Liberty Street grew heavier not just with summer humidity, but with a suffocating sense of dread. The boys' brief moment of triumph fixing Mr. Sterling's tire was quickly overshadowed by the chilling reality of their impending deadlines. Their world, already fragile, felt like it was crumbling. Their small shared apartment, usually a haven, now seemed to press in on them, a small arena where their desperate fight for their families' futures was silently playing out. The pressure mounted with cruel precision. Jackson's mother received an eviction notice, a stark white paper threatening to displace them if 2 months overdue rent wasn't paid. Simultaneously, the hospital contacted Michael's family again. His father's broken leg wasn't healing as expected, and he needed specialized physical therapy, an additional enormous expense his meager insurance wouldn't cover. And for David's grandmother, the medical news was grim. Her condition had worsened, requiring an even more aggressive and expensive treatment plan. The hospital delivered a final, devastating ultimatum to David's struggling family. A non-negotiable upfront payment of $15,000 was due within 72 hours to keep Mrs. Jenkins on the critical treatment list. 72 hours. 3 days to find a sum that felt like a king's ransom. The boys were utterly, terrifyingly alone. They ran through their mental Rolodex of odd jobs, but nothing came close. They even tried selling some of their few treasured possessions, an old gaming console, a worn baseball glove. But the pawn shop offered barely pennies on the dollar. The memory of Mr. Sterling's brief gratitude felt like a distant, cruel mirage. Officer Hayes, too, seemed to ramp up his scrutiny. His patrol car became a more constant presence, often slowing to a crawl as it passed their stoop, his eyes lingering, a silent, mocking reminder of their vulnerability. The unspoken message was clear. One wrong move, one act of desperation, and he'd be there to reinforce the rigid boundaries of their lives. The boys were exhausted, sleep-deprived, and consumed by a cold, pervasive fear. The specter of their family's suffering and the overwhelming burden of being unable to help bore down on them, threatening to crush their young spirits. The final, gut-wrenching blow landed with the brutal force of an executioner's axe. A registered letter arrived, addressed to David's grandmother from the hospital. David, his hands trembling, opened it. The words, clinical and cold, blurred through his tears. Due to the outstanding balance and the inability to secure the required deposit, Mrs. Clara Jenkins will be removed from the critical treatment protocol within 24 hours. 24 hours. One single agonizing day. The final countdown. David crumpled the letter in his hand, a guttural cry escaping him. Jackson and Michael rushed to his side, their faces mirroring his despair as he choked out the news. They stared at each other, desperate, helpless. This was it. There was literally nothing left. No more calls to make, no more family to beg, no more dreams to sell. They had exhausted every last ounce of their strength, every flicker of hope. They were at the very edge, clinging to their existence by the thinnest of threads. This was their collective, hang-by-a-single-hair moment, a desperate precipice where their family's survival and their own futures teetered on the brink of an irreversible fall. The cramped silence of the apartment pressed in on Jackson, Michael, and David, suffocating them with its despair. The hospital's cruel deadline echoed in their ears, a death knell for David's grandmother, and a symbol of their own crushing helplessness. This was it, the breathless moment before all hope evaporated, leaving only the bitter taste of defeat. A sudden, unexpected sound ripped through the quiet despair. Not the worn rumble of an old car, but the smooth, almost silent purr of a powerful engine. Then, a soft knock on their door. The boys exchanged bewildered glances. Who could it be? They hadn't ordered food, and it was too late for Mr. Jenkins. Jackson, his heart pounding with a strange mix of dread and faint curiosity, opened the door. Standing on their modest stoop was a vision out of place. A gleaming black SUV, the very same one they had fixed days ago, its tinted windows reflecting the fading afternoon light. And beside it, tall and imposing, stood Mr. Sterling, impeccably dressed, his usually stern face softened by an unreadable expression. "Boys," Mr. Sterling began, his voice calm, "may I come in?" Hesitantly, Jackson stepped aside. Mr. Sterling entered, his gaze sweeping across their small, sparsely furnished living room. He didn't comment on its modesty. Instead, he reached into his inner jacket pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. "I asked around," Mr. Sterling said, his eyes meeting Jackson's, then Michael's, then David's. "I found out about your families, about your mother's migraines, your father's accident, and Mrs. Jenkins's condition." He paused, his expression serious. "And I found out you're facing a deadline for Mrs. Jenkins's treatment." He placed the envelope on their worn coffee table. "This is for Mrs. Jenkins's surgery, all of it, plus enough to cover your rent and your father's physical therapy, and some to help your families get back on their feet." David, unable to believe his ears, snatched up the envelope. Inside was a cashier's check, made out to the hospital for the full $15,000, along with a stack of crisp $100 bills. "Mr. Sterling, but why?" David whispered, tears blurring his vision. "Why?" Mr. Sterling echoed, a faint smile touching his lips. "Because you three showed me something money can't buy. ingenuity, resourcefulness, hard work, and a damn good heart. When I needed help and everyone else saw only inconvenience, you saw an opportunity to lend a hand. I saw your potential that day, and I refused to let it go to waste because of circumstances beyond your control. He then produced a stack of business cards. And these are for you. When you're ready, reach out. There's always room for talent at Sterling Innovations. This was it, the breathless moment of profound, utterly unexpected salvation. David crumpled to the floor, the check clutched to his chest, his sobs of relief echoing in the small room. Jackson and Michael, equally overwhelmed, could only nod, tears streaming down their own faces. A miracle. Suddenly, a loud rap on the door. It was Officer Hayes, his face stern. He had clearly seen the black SUV and, ever suspicious, had come to investigate. He pushed past Jackson, his eyes widening as he saw Mr. Sterling inside the modest apartment. His gaze then fell on the envelope on the table. "Everything all right here, Mr. Sterling?" Officer Hayes asked, his voice laced with uncharacteristic deference. His usual abrasive tone was gone, replaced by a nervous respect in the presence of the billionaire. His eyes flickered to the boys, then back to the money. Mr. Sterling turned to Officer Hayes, his expression cool and composed. "Everything is perfectly fine, officer. In fact, these young men just received a well-deserved investment in their futures and a critical medical payment for a family member." He gestured towards the check. "Thanks to them, Mrs. Jenkins will be getting the care she needs. A fine example of what happens when you empower local talent. Wouldn't you agree, officer?" Officer Hayes, thoroughly flummoxed, mumbled something about community outreach and good to see, his face paling as he realized he had misjudged the entire situation. The air crackled with the irony of his presence. He had spent years seeing these boys as potential trouble, while Mr. Sterling had seen potential and compassion. Officer Hayes, outmatched and humbled, quickly retreated, the stark contrast between his cynicism and Mr. Sterling's generosity a silent rebuke. He had witnessed a power far greater than his authority, the undeniable force of true merit and unexpected kindness. Within the hour, calls were made. The hospital confirmed Mrs. Jenkins' surgery was back on, scheduled for the very next morning. Jackson's mother called, sobbing with relief at the news about the rent. Michael's father, despite his pain, managed a grateful laugh on the phone. The apartment, once filled with the suffocating weight of despair, now vibrated with unrestrained joy, a symphony of relief and gratitude. The boys, still reeling, looked at Mr. Sterling. We don't know how to thank you," Jackson said, his voice thick. Mr. Sterling simply smiled. "You just did, boys, by showing me what you're capable of. The true thanks will be in what you do with this opportunity." He looked at each of them, his gaze filled with quiet encouragement. "Remember, it takes more than money to build an empire. It takes vision, and it takes heart. You all have both in spades." His departure was as smooth and silent as his arrival. The black SUV glided away, leaving behind not just a substantial sum of money, but a profound sense of vindication and a glimmer of hope that would forever alter the trajectory of their lives. 3 black boys had helped a billionaire with a flat tire, and the next day, a black SUV showed up at their house, changing everything. The sleek black SUV had vanished as silently as it appeared, but its impact reverberated through their small apartment, replacing the suffocating despair with a profound and fragile sense of peace. The air no longer hummed with unspoken anxieties. Instead, a quiet, almost disbelieving joy began to settle in. The transformation was swift and palpable. The hospital confirmed that Mrs. Clara Jenkins's critical treatment was fully funded and underway, a miracle that brought an immediate wave of relief to David and his family. Jackson's mother, her face etched with exhaustion for so long, finally found a moment of respite as the overdue rent was settled, lifting the shadow of eviction. Michael's father began his specialized physical therapy, the hope of regaining full mobility a tangible reality. The crushing burdens that had weighed down their young shoulders had suddenly, impossibly, been lifted. Officer Hayes, once a symbol of their systemic hurdles, underwent a subtle but significant shift. The story of the anonymous billionaire's intervention and the undeniable integrity of the boys quietly made its way through the local precinct. Hayes's usual cynical vigilance around Liberty Street lessened. He still patrolled, but his gaze was less accusatory, replaced by a nuanced understanding. He began to see the resilience and potential in the neighborhood, not just the perceived problems, often offering a brief, almost respectful nod when he passed the boys. It was a small change, but a meaningful one, signaling a shift in perspective that had once seemed impossible. The boys, once bound by shared struggle, now found themselves united by shared opportunity. Jackson, with Mr. Sterling's quiet encouragement, began spending hours at the local library, devouring books on urban planning and sustainable design, his notebooks filling with ambitious blueprints for their own neighborhood. Michael, with access to new tools and online courses, immersed himself in robotics, his room becoming a workshop of whirring gears and blinking lights. David, vibrant and energized, spent his newfound free time delving deeper into coding, his screen alive with nascent game designs that blended storytelling with community-building themes. The experience had profoundly shaped them. They had learned that kindness could come from the most unexpected places, and that their inherent talents, once hidden or dismissed, held immense value. They hadn't just received money, they had received validation, a belief in their potential that had been absent from their lives. Months later, on a breezy autumn afternoon, Jackson, Michael, and David sat on their usual stoop. But this time, their conversation was filled with bright plans, not quiet worries. The fear was gone, replaced by an invigorating sense of purpose. "Can you believe it?" David mused, a wide grin on his face. "Mrs. Clara's out of the hospital feeling stronger every day, and my grandmother's finally smiling again." Michael nodded, tinkering with a small circuit board. "And my dad's getting better. He even talked about helping me build a bigger workbench." Jackson looked out at Liberty Street, no longer seeing just faded paint and cracked asphalt, but a canvas for his future designs. "Mr. Sterling, he didn't just give us money. He gave us a chance. A real one." He paused, a thoughtful look in his eyes. "We still have to work for it, right? But now, we can actually build something." A deep, profound sense of peace settled over them, a feeling unlike any they had known before. It wasn't the absence of challenges, but the exhilarating presence of hope. They knew their journey was just beginning, filled with hard work and new lessons, but now they had the tools, the support, and the belief to truly soar. This was their new calm, a serenity born not from escaping a storm, but from finding their true potential and daring to dream bigger than their circumstances. 5 years later, Liberty Street pulsed with a newfound vibrancy, a living testament to transformation. The faded storefronts now gleamed with fresh paint, small businesses hummed with activity, and laughter echoed from a newly renovated community center that had once been an abandoned building. Jackson, Michael, and David, no longer just teenagers, stood tall as respected young men, their youthful dreams having blossomed into tangible realities. Jackson, with his keen architectural eye and unwavering vision, was now a rising star at Sterling Innovations, leading projects that focused on sustainable, community-centric urban development. His designs incorporated green spaces and affordable housing, transforming neglected city blocks into vibrant, livable neighborhoods. Michael, his quiet intensity now channeled into innovation, managed a thriving robotics club for local youth, inspiring a new generation of engineers and tinkerers. His creations ranged from adaptive technologies for the elderly to educational robots used in schools across the city. David, ever the charismatic one, had launched a successful nonprofit, Game Changers, which taught coding and digital storytelling to underprivileged kids, empowering them to create their own narratives and build their own digital worlds. His program was celebrated for fostering creativity and critical thinking. The Sterling family, particularly Mr. Sterling, remained a steadfast presence in their lives. He was more than a benefactor. He was a mentor, a sounding board, and a silent champion for their endeavors. He often spoke of the boys as the heartbeat of his philanthropic efforts, their genuine drive and passion inspiring him to invest more deeply in community development. Mrs. Clara Jenkins, fully recovered, now volunteered at David's Game Changers Center, her wisdom and stories a comforting presence for the young coders. Officer Hayes, having shed his cynical shell, was a familiar and welcome sight on Liberty Street, often stopping by the community center for a friendly chat or to offer advice to the kids. He had become a genuine advocate for community policing, his past prejudices replaced by a deep understanding and respect for the people he served. One sun-drenched afternoon, a crowd gathered in the newly revitalized community park, a sprawling green space that Jackson had designed, complete with Michael's interactive play structures and a digital storytelling exhibit curated by David. It was the annual Liberty Street Festival, a celebration of renewal and collaboration. Jackson, Michael, and David stood on a makeshift stage, looking out at the diverse, joyful crowd. Mrs. Clara waved from the front row, a proud smile on her face. Mr. Sterling stood quietly at the back, his eyes beaming with satisfaction. Even Officer Hayes was there, sharing a laugh with Mr. Jenkins from Big Mike's. Jackson stepped forward, his voice clear and confident. 5 years ago, he began, his gaze sweeping across the transformed neighborhood. This place was different. We faced challenges that felt insurmountable. But then, an act of unexpected kindness and a flat tire changed everything. He paused, a genuine smile gracing his lips. It showed us that potential isn't limited by circumstance, and that with a little help and a lot of heart, anything is possible. Michael stepped up, gesturing to the vibrant park around them. This park, this center, these programs, they're not just structures or code. They're a symbol of what happens when we invest in each other, when we believe in the dreams of our young people, no matter where they come from. David, brimming with his usual enthusiasm, concluded, "We got our second spring because someone saw past our struggle to our potential. And now, it's our mission to make sure every kid on every Liberty Street gets their second spring, too. To create spaces where talent flourishes, and dreams aren't just whispers, but roars." As the applause swelled, the boys stepped down, surrounded by grateful smiles and warm embraces. They looked at each other, their eyes reflecting the incredible journey they had shared. From a broken tire to building a brighter future, their story was a testament to the transformative power of a single act of kindness, proving that light always finds a path, even in the deepest darkness, and that unseen heroes can indeed alter destinies. If this story stirred your heart and reminds you that courage can alter destinies, and that light always finds a path even in the deepest darkness, please leave a comment. Share this story with those who need inspiration. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss upcoming narratives that delve into the profound human spirit and the power of unseen heroes. Thank you for joining the journey.